Hey there, thinkers. Welcome back to Critical Hit. My name is Est. And so now we have a former Amazon and Disney executive bravely stepping up to point out what anyone paying attention has known for years. Hollywood's got a serious attitude problem. Contempt for the audience and hostility towards men? Shocking. I mean, who would have guessed that insulting your core audience while pushing out preachy, half-baked content would drive people away? Like, what a revelation. It's almost like the industry thinks viewers are nothing more than wallets that better nod along obediently to whatever message they're force-fed. Or else. Meanwhile, anyone daring to ask for good storytelling, memorable characters, or heaven forbid, some respect gets labeled as the problem. But sure, Hollywood, keep telling yourself that it's the audience that's out of touch. Clearly, the dwindling box office numbers and tanking franchises are just a coincidence, right? However, I have a few things to say here, but before I do, we have a small request. If you're new here, consider hitting the subscribe button, smashing that like, and ring the bell to be notified for our next video. We would greatly appreciate this, since this will help us appease those YouTube algorithm gods. So we thank you. Now, let me give you our thoughts on this, and let's get into it. Now, Amazon Video and Amazon Studio founder and Disney executive Roy Price lampooned Hollywood for having contempt for the audience and hostility towards white people and men in a recent article posted to his Substack titled "Woke is the New Disco." Price blasted the current Hollywood elite for living within an America that mainly exists in Hollywood HR departments, Columbia's faculty lounge, and at CNN and MSNBC. Right, because nothing says cutting-edge cultural critique quite like comparing a social movement to a 40-year-old music genre. Like, it's just the classic move of dismiss a complex conversation about diversity and inclusion by likening it to something passé, as if that somehow makes it irrelevant. Like, what's next? Maybe he'll explain how TikTok is the new Betamax, or how climate change activism is just the new pet rock craze. Like, it's almost impressive how some people can take serious issues and reduce them to punchlines for the nostalgia crowd. He noted that the studios and the elites that run them have chosen to disdain and ignore many Americans, including half the country's votes. 40% of Americans who own guns, another 40% who attend church monthly, and the 74% who live outside the West Coast, New York, or New England. And to add to this, the roughly 50% of Americans who are male. I mean, like, yeah, absolutely. It's just a genius marketing strategy. So, like, why bother appealing to the majority when you can alienate them instead? Ignore half the country's voters, brush off the millions who own guns, and wave away the 40% of people who dare to set foot in a church once a month. Like, heaven forbid anyone care about the 74% of Americans who don't live in West Coast mansions or New York high-rises. Like, flyover states? I'm like, really, what are those, right? And then marginalizing 50% of the population just for being male? It's almost as if they sat down and said, how can we shrink our audience to the smallest, most tiniest bubble possible? Well, bravo, Hollywood. Because who needs a broad appeal when you can virtue signal your way into irrelevance? Because soon they'll be wondering why ticket sales are plummeting, streaming numbers are down, and the average American no longer cares what they produce. But hey, at least they've got approval of Twitter's loudest 2% priorities, right? So next, Price declared that the deeper problem within Hollywood is contempt for the audience. He explained, wokeness within politics and entertainment carries within a strong and explicit element of hostility, particularly towards white people and men. While this approach initially gained compliance through social pressure and corporate acquaintances a few years ago, such accommodations were, of course, temporary. Right, Hollywood's deep contempt for the audience, because what better way to win over millions of fans than by alienating them with preachy agendas and wokeness that treats them like they're the problem? Like, maybe next time they'll just release movies directly aimed at their Twitter followers. Amongst the people and in courtrooms, by 2024, wokeness has become toxic to a large part of the audience. It's an embarrassing, widely resented relic of the past, and the people need to see that and acknowledged by candidates. They, especially men, need to see wokeness disavowed. He later reiterated, Hollywood is having a difficult time partly because, like Kamala Harris, it has been denying the reality of the audience. It has not been meeting customer expectations, mostly because it disdains them. It's time to focus on making great shows, hiring the best people, and responding to customers, meeting the customers where they are, giving the people what they want. Because making customers the enemy of your industry is never viable, he wrote. He also shared why he believes Hollywood was so easily captured the ideology. What? For most people, it was conformity. Hiring decisions are subjective in Hollywood, so there is always a pressure to conform. In addition, at this point, some people believe that if not for wokeness, they would not have their jobs. They're probably right about that. I'm like, damn rights they're right about that. Like, come on. Okay, so Hollywood's decline is definitely due to its refusal to acknowledge reality. Because why would you listen to the audience when you can just lecture them instead, right? Because it's almost like they're too busy congratulating themselves for being woke to realize that it's creativity and good storytelling that actually keep people interested. But no, let's blame the viewers for not being thrilled with recycled content and identity politics masquerading as art. I mean, sure, keep believing that if it weren't for wokeness, people wouldn't have jobs. And maybe the real reason is that some people don't know the difference between doing the right thing and just following the trend because it's safe. But newsflash, talent, quality, and meeting audience expectations still matter. Wow, like who knew? Finally, Price revealed that he believes Hollywood should and can be saved and explained how that can occur. First, he stated, at this point, it's not enough to be not woke. One must be anti-woke. As for what that entails, he shared that means putting a focus back on mediocrity, ambition, freedom, and humor. Furthermore, he noted it means that the era of canceling must come to an end. Rather, accusations must be handled with fast-paced, level-headed judgment. He also noted the super woke may have to leave, or perhaps some can walk it back. But Hollywood should also start by confronting the original sin of its recent era by distinguishing between those excluded for legitimate reasons and those purged in a feral moment of vindictive frenzy to capture power. Oh, because nothing screams rescue Hollywood quite like the rise of self-proclaimed anti-woke crusaders. I mean, maybe the answer isn't to fight against something, but to actually make good content that anyone can enjoy, regardless of their political leanings. But hey, I mean, what do I know, right? Let's just blame the super woke and pretend that'll fix everything, because clearly mediocrity is totally alive and well in Hollywood, right? Like, Price's comments aren't exactly plucked from thin air, and it's not just Hollywood pushing this vile, agenda-driven nonsense either. And to back up Price's claims that Hollywood is just downright hostile towards its audience, especially white people, and let's not forget white men, you don't even have to look far. Just look at the Canadian-owned Collider, who published an article by Cameron Barnett titled "Star Wars' Biggest Problem is the Fans." Oh really? The fans, not the over-the-top pandering narratives Hollywood just loves to shove down our throats? Like, come on. And Barnett's brilliant conclusion, the loudest voices in Star Wars universe are pushing a bigoted agenda from back in the day, while mainstream Star Wars content has evolved into meaningful narratives, all while being bogged down by hate. And he goes on to say that true fans understand Star Wars is this magical land where everyone belongs, and that the future is so bright for those who've been enlightened enough to accept everyone's compassion, because clearly the rest of us missed the memo. And what did he mean by earlier time? Did he mean like the ancient era of the 1970s when Star Wars was born, nestled in a cinematic world where Spielberg and his Eurocentric white male visionary buddies dominated? Like, never mind that Star Wars is set in a galaxy far, far away, and it's not Earth, because the original trilogy, despite all that intergalactic freedom, still managed to feature a predominantly white cast, underwhelming female characters, and a total lack of LGBTQ plus representation. I mean, like, how quaint, right? But like, it's not just Hollywood that's been hijacked. Like, Dungeons and Dragons has fallen victim too. Like, enter Kyle Brink, the executive producer of Wizards of the Coast, who made waves by stating that white men should be ousted from the hobby. Like, are you kidding me? During an interview with the YouTube channel Three Black Halflings, he declared, for years people assumed that Dungeons and Dragons players were all white dudes, hauled up in basements, but that assumption is clearly outdated and getting more irrelevant by the day. Honestly, guys like me, we can't leave this hobby fast enough. I mean, sounds like he's got his own exit strategy like all planned out, and the video game industry and its so-called coverage have clearly fallen into the hands of a new ideology led by none other than Game Developers Conference advisor and self-proclaimed expert Marina Diaz. Now, we did cover this lovely specimen of a creature, but in a now deleted gem of a post on X, Diaz shared her inspiring journey from thinking she was a terrible designer to magically becoming the go-to consultant and trainer at one of the biggest game companies on the planet. Her sage advice: keep believing in yourself and fuck white men and gatekeepers. But wait, don't worry, because there is more. In a follow-up post, she clarified, not all white men suck, but you know what I mean, my loves. Whew, because I'm so glad we got that all cleared up. Also, apparently IGN's Nihon Chan took a moment back in January of 2022 to let everyone know just how much they hate white people. In a truly enlightening post, Chan wrote, "Do I hate white people? Yes. And if you're my friend, you'll get it. It's not personal, I swear. I just can't stand white privilege, especially their talent for crying reverse racism when someone dares to criticize them. It's like the whole world revolves around them, even in Singapore, every single day." I mean, price nails what's been going down in corporate America, especially in the entertainment world, and even throws in some solutions. But let's be real here, because Hollywood's probably not listening. After all, these companies have made wokeness a corporate strategy with their hiring programs. And people like Diaz and Chan are calling the shots at Disney and Amazon now, pushing people like Price out the door. So, looks like the so-called war against wokeness is far from over, and in many cases, it might just be getting started. However, those are my thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And hey, before you go, subscribe to our channel, smash that like button, and ring the bell to be notified for our next video. As always, this is Est, and I'm signing off now, so I'll see you in the next one. Toodles!